This next topic can be a little confusing for people, but we're gonna break it down for you. Caliber versus gauge. Ben, run me through caliber, gauge. What are the differences? What is it actually talking about?
Yeah, so really to make it simple, they are both measuring something similar, which is the diameter of your barrel, the internal diameter that is, so the bore. So when you talk about caliber, that's more of a centerfire rifle and pistol kind of naming convention versus gauge is more of a shot shell.
Okay. So one of the ways I like to explain to my ladies what caliber is, whenever we're buying stud earrings, you buy it in 3mm, 5mm, 9mm, all that's telling you is the diameter of your earring. It's the same thing for your 9mm ammunition. So all that says is 9mm, it's 9mm in diameter, that will fit in a 9mm bore or barrel.
Correct, and some things that can be confusing is not all centerfire cartridges are around metrics, so 9mm for instance. So on rifle, there's a lot of like 308. 308 is an English designation, so it's in inches, so .308 is the bore diameter for a .308 Winchester. Then you move over to shotgun shells and it gets a little bit confusing with the gauge. And gauge is just yet another way of measuring that internal diameter, but you go way back to whenever they started building shotguns, and how they came up with the gauge diameter was a little interesting. So they would take the number of lead balls at that diameter to equal 1 pound. So for instance, a 12 gauge takes 12 lead balls at that internal diameter to make a pound.
Same thing for 20, right? But that would be a smaller gauge than 12 gauge because it needs more.
Correct, so bigger number, but that's because it took more of those lead balls to equal a pound. So it goes 20 gauge, 12 gauge, 10 gauge, and so on.
All right, y'all, that's the basic differences between caliber versus gauge. If you're unsure what caliber or gauge you need to use, always refer to your owner's manual, your barrel stamp, and the ammo box.